Welcome back to NewsWire. DraftKings in the news quite a bit over the last 24 hours, partnering up with the WNBA, but also leaving one other partnership. That will be the topic that Sam McQuillan and I start off with. Sam, great to have you back here on NewsWire. And let's start off with this story here. VSiN, the sports betting network that has been around for a number of years. Actually, full transparency, I used to be on VSiN all the time. I used to make weekly appearances on that show, of course, before SportsGrid became live, and now I am here with you guys on SportsGrid. But certainly they, built their own footprint into a 24-hour network on radio initially. And then a few years ago, DraftKings came in and took over some of the sponsorship and distribution, and now we find out that they're leaving that sponsorship and distribution. So what exactly is going on here, Sam?
Yeah, Craig, a few years ago when DraftKings actually bought VSiN, they fully took over the network, but as you well know, it's a network designed for sports bettors to find an edge, talk about, different books that have, better pricing here or there. So when DraftKings came in, they kind of just slapped their logo on a lot of things, and it was a lot of odds presented by DraftKings, which kind of conflicted with maybe the way the network was founded. But they paid $70 million at the time to acquire the network and do all of those things. And now 3 years later, we're talking about them selling the network back to Brent Musburger, the legendary broadcaster, and his family, which founded and built out this network. And kind of when this network was created, it was really one of the first of the time to talk about sports betting 24/7, have a place where you could always go. Now you have a lot of other places, including SportsGrid, FanDuel TV, all these different 24-hour sports betting networks, so to speak. So we talked about this deal being close last week. I believe there was a report that the Musburgers could buy DraftKings back. Fast forward a week later, the deal's complete. We don't know how much exactly. The parameters of the deal are very unclear at this moment. There was sort of some speculation out there that it could kind of mirror what Barstool did with Penn, selling it back to founder Dave Portnoy for $1. Now, It's not an apples to apples case because Barstool there was able to kind of take advantage of Penn all of a sudden needing to move quickly on ESPN, needing to get rid of Barstool as soon as possible, and really had a lot of leverage there. So it'd be hard to think of a similar situation with DraftKings where owning VSiN would conflict them from doing any other larger media deal. So it could mean a few other things. It could mean they have another move up their sleeve in terms of media partners. It could mean that, quite frankly, they just didn't really figure out how to make it a profitable partnership, besides couldn't mesh. The nature of VSiN obviously is a lot different than just using one book. So the CEO of DraftKings has been pretty vocal over the past year and a half about the need to find more efficient partnerships, and partnerships are going to be really good for DraftKings as opposed to just kind of, here's a lot of money, get our brand out there. So this could be part of that. But DraftKings also hasn't shied away from spending a lot of money on big partnerships lately either. They just paid like $750 million to buy a Jackpocket, which is a lottery retailer. So I imagine we'll hear more about this during DraftKings' upcoming earnings call. Right. We'll see if it's a pivot away towards media as a customer acquisition tool, or if they've got something else up their sleeve. It would be nice to get a price tag, but we'll just kind of have to see what else shakes on this tree.
Yeah, we just really don't know. Again, it would be hard for me to believe that it is similar to the Barstool acquisition for $1. But again, as you said, we don't know if they have something else that they had to get out of this and find something else. It did happen very quickly, I will say. I saw the rumor about it, and then the next week I did see VSiN, I think it was Brian Musburger, ended up making that post. Okay, so now bigger news as the WNBA and DraftKings make their partnership official. So good news for both sides, especially, I would say, Sam, very good news for the WNBA. Sam, even with sports betting being legal a couple of years ago, they could have never dreamed that they would be able to link up with a partnership like this. But the sport is growing wildly. The attention on it has been tremendous. And I think predominantly that's the reason why. I don't think anything simply has changed except for the WNBA's popularity.
Yeah, this is really a cool story. And one of the reasons I love covering sports business and sports betting in general, we're kind of seeing DraftKings, the money that they're putting in here, reflect really what's going on with American fandom and viewership. The WNBA is fresh off of an 11-year, $2.2 billion new media rights deal. So that's huge news. And now you're seeing companies invest, kind of put their money where their mouth is. We just talked about DraftKings. Maybe they didn't find VSiN, so great. Maybe they didn't make a lot of money off that deal. But the fact that they're doing a deal now, a partnership with the WNBA, they're going to be their second sports betting sponsor, comes after they stopped partnerships with other companies like ESPN that they didn't think was really bearing fruit. So this really says a lot about what they believe the WNBA to be currently as sort of a marketing tool, and where they believe it's going to go as well. So FanDuel previously had been the only sports betting sponsor, but now it adds DraftKings. DraftKings will have basically branding opportunities all over the WNBA's platform, including this new WNBA postseason push, which is going to be a content kind of platform that comes out at the end of the regular season. So DraftKings is pretty excited about that from a branding opportunity. They'll also get access to official league data, which is something that was talked about really early in the days of sports betting, companies getting the actual data from the league to verify the stats. It hasn't really shaken out where it's been a big deal if they don't have it, but DraftKings has also been pretty vocal about wanting to add more WNBA markets that mirror a lot of the stuff they've done with the NBA, if that's first basket, first three, those kind of things. So DraftKings really doesn't have to look far to see the popularity spike in the WNBA. They already reported before the year started that they expected money wagered on the sport to double from last year, which was already almost double the year before. Obviously, viewership is up a ton, I think 300% year over year. Merchandise sales are through the roof. So it's really cool to see as the WNBA rises, as viewership obviously spikes, you have companies coming in and investing in it and wanting it to grow more. So it's a really good sign for the league as women's hoops continues to grow. You have big tech companies like DraftKings coming in, and maybe there'll be a few more down the road too if DraftKings and FanDuel are successful with their partnerships here.
Yeah, and speaking of tech companies, we move ahead to Kambi, who, of course, they don't need to be involved in taking any money as sports betting operators, but they certainly have had a big footprint in the operators themselves and running some of the tech for it. Really good second quarter, Sam, for Kambi. I mean, this is a company we've talked about on the show for several years. It seems like their success continues to grow.
Yeah, Kambi's a really interesting case in the sports betting landscape. They basically outsource their tech to sports books that don't have their own tech or haven't built out their own tech. It's been a big trend lately in America for companies like DraftKings, Penn, that was Barstool, now ESPN Bet, to move off of Kambi and onto their own tech. We've seen kind of how hard that can be for some to maintain a competitive product. But good news for Kambi here, with revenue up 6.5% year over year as they report second quarter earnings, and profit up 67% as well. The really interesting thing, I think, within all that is how well they did with international soccer, which they still have a ton of customers in Europe and across the world. So a lot of their business is tied to how well they do there. They had a 20% increase in betting volume this quarter, which is basically the handle. It's what the Europeans call a handle. So that means, they were taking more bets than ever on a super popular sport. And with that, they also posted a record hold of 10.3%. That's essentially what the sports books keep, which is the best ever. So it was really a great quarter. Thanks a lot to the Euros and Copa America, but also Kambi's product has developed a lot. They were really vocal about this being kind of a test period for their new AI trading platform, and we're seeing it pay dividends. So as we expand to football later in the fall, maybe this is a good sign that that'll all roll over. It's going to be really interesting to see how these business-to-business providers survive now in this new sports betting landscape.
All right, Sam. Well, great stuff as always. We'll talk to you again next week. I know you're building a new little Sam studio. I'll look forward to seeing you when you have that in, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, can't wait. Thanks, Greg.